May 20th, 1989, 5:09 in the morning. A Soviet Air Force captain standing on Turkish soil with a bullet in his arm and a stolen MiG-29 behind him. 6 hours earlier, Gudota Air Base, Soviet Georgia. The regiment is asleep, almost all of them. Captain Alexander Zuyev baked them a cake earlier that evening. He told them his wife was expecting a boy. She was not pregnant. There was no boy. There was only a plan he had been building for 6 weeks. He reaches the cockpit. He hits the start sequence. Nothing. The aircraft has been in storage, cold systems. He forces himself to slow down. Start from the beginning, step by step. The engines fire. 240 kilometers of open water. 15 minutes standing between everything he was and everything he was about to become. He prepared 4 words of English for this moment. 4 words. That was all he had. Finally, I am American. What makes a pilot drug his own brothers and run? To understand that, you have to go back 7 years. Because this story does not begin with a stolen jet. It begins with a rejection letter. Captain Alexander Zuyev had everything the Soviet system could give a man. By his mid-20s, he was already flying the MiG-29, the aircraft NATO had spent a decade dreading. Built as the Soviet answer to America's F-15 and F-16, he had married the daughter of a general. He had the flight hours, the record, the qualifications that pointed in only one direction: test pilot school, the most elite aviation posting in the entire country, the final step. His application came back rejected. No explanation, no appeal, just a closed door. And in the silence after that door closed, Zuyev started paying attention to things he had spent years training himself not to notice. September 1st, 1983. Korean Airlines Flight 007, with 269 people aboard, shot out of the sky over the Sea of Japan by a Soviet interceptor. The government calls it a spy plane. Every pilot in the USSR calls it correct procedure. Then, in 1985, a friend pulls Zuyev aside. He had been stationed on Sakhalin Island the night it happened, and he tells Zuyev what actually happened. The radar installation on the Kamchatka Peninsula had been knocked out by Arctic storms 10 days before. The local commanders, terrified of the consequences, reported it as fixed. It was not fixed. It was completely blind. The Soviet Air Force shot a civilian airliner out of the sky it was never capable of identifying. Not a military decision, not a tactical call, cowardice dressed up as procedure. April 1986. Reactor 4 at Chernobyl explodes in the early morning hours. The Soviet government goes quiet, and behind that silence, party members and their families begin quietly leaving. Ordinary families are told nothing for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of children playing outside, drinking the local milk, breathing the air around a melted nuclear reactor. Zuyev tells himself both things were aberrations. The uniform is still worth wearing. He keeps telling himself that right up until Tbilisi. April 9th, 1989. Thousands gather outside the government building in Tbilisi. Peaceful, candles and signs and families. They want independence. They are asking for it quietly. At 4 in the morning, Soviet troops move in. Toxic gas and sharpened sapper spades, entrenching tools filed down to a blade. 21 people die. People who came with candles. Zuyev hears about it within hours. Then someone tells him the part that ends it entirely. His regiment, his aircraft, they may be placed on standby for use against future demonstrations. He gives himself 6 weeks. He tells no one, not a single person. There is one person above everyone else he does not tell. His wife, the general's daughter, the woman whose father's entire career will be destroyed the moment her husband disappears into Turkish airspace. She goes to sleep on the night of May 19th, believing she is married to a Soviet Air Force captain. She will wake up to discover she is married to a ghost. The problem is the other pilots, trained Soviet fighter pilots in identical aircraft who know exactly how Zuyev flies. The moment he takes off without clearance, they will scramble. He needs them unable to move. So he bakes a cake. a strawberry cake. On the evening of May 19th, he walks into the squadron common room and announces that his wife is expecting a boy. He wants to celebrate with his brothers. He hands a slice to every man in the room. His wife is not pregnant. There is no boy. It is a lie. A single, clean lie constructed to give 20 men a reason to eat cake at the same time. Everyone eats. Zuyev watches each of them. He smiles. He accepts congratulations for a child that does not exist. By the time the lights go out, the regiment is sliding into a sedated sleep it cannot explain. At least 7 men will need hospitalization by morning. Zuyev waits until the base goes completely quiet. Then he moves. He cuts the telephone lines. He jams the armory lock. He removes the keys from the fuel truck and drops them in a sewer drain. He slices the communication wires, one by one. The last wire triggers a single ding from a bell in the dormitory. He freezes. Silence. Nothing moves. He keeps going. He walks to the flight line. The MiG-29s are dark and still in the Georgian night, and immediately the wall. 2 guards on the aircraft. He had skipped them at the party, deliberately. And now he cannot get near the planes. He retreats into the dark, and he waits for the guard shift to change, for the sedated second shift to relieve the first. The second shift never comes. One of the guards walks toward the squadron building to find out why, and he leaves his colleague alone at the aircraft. Zuyev moves. He walks up to the remaining guard and tells him calmly that his relief is running late, that he will cover the post himself. The guard is tired, irritated. He walks away. Zuyev stands at the aircraft. 30 seconds. That is all he has. The first guard comes back at a run. He has found the others unconscious. He understands. He rounds the corner, and both men know in the same instant exactly what is happening. What follows takes less than a minute. 2 men fighting in the dark between fighter jets. Both draw their weapons. Both fire. The guard goes down. Zuyev takes a round to the arm. He does not stop. He climbs. He hits the start sequence. Nothing. The aircraft has been in storage, cold systems, dead silence in the cockpit. He forces himself to slow down, start from the beginning, step by step, the way he was trained. The engines fire. He releases the brakes. And Captain Alexander Zuyev, bleeding alone in a stolen jet, points himself at the Black Sea. He drops to low altitude immediately, below radar, bleeding, flying a jet that has not been fully prepared with a weapon system he cannot use, alone over Soviet Georgia. Ahead of him, 240 kilometers of open water, the Black Sea, 15 minutes standing between everything he was and everything he is about to become. He thinks about the radar on Kamchatka that no one admitted was broken, the children breathing the air around Chernobyl, the candles in Tbilisi, and the order that his aircraft might be turned on his own people. He flies south. When he enters Turkish airspace, the tower orders him to turn back. He tells them he is not turning back. They refuse him permission to land. He tells them again. At 5:10 in the morning, on May 20th, 1989, the wheels of a Soviet MiG-29 touch the civilian runway at Trabzon airport. He kills the engines. He sits for a moment in the sudden silence. The ground crew are frozen. Nobody moves. A single Turkish guard walks slowly toward the aircraft. He climbs down onto the tarmac. His arm is bleeding through his flight suit. The guard stops a few meters away and looks at him. Zuyev had prepared 4 words of English for this moment. 4 words. That was all he had. Finally, I am American. The guard smiles, not from fear, not from alarm, from relief, as if he understood in that single moment everything that had brought this man to this runway. Within hours, the Soviet Foreign Ministry summons the Turkish ambassador. 2 demands: return the aircraft, return the pilot. Turkey agrees to return the aircraft. The MiG-29 is escorted out of Turkish airspace by Turkish Air Force jets and handed back to the country that built it. Zuyev watches it go from a hospital window while surgeons remove the bullet from his arm. They do not return the pilot. Back in Soviet Georgia, Zuyev's wife wakes up. She is the daughter of a general. She is also now the wife of a defector. She knew nothing about the plan. In the Soviet system, That will not protect her.
And then, the Americans arrive.
Analysts who had spent years studying the MiG-29 from satellite photographs, guessing at its secrets, are now sitting across a table from the man who flew it. 7 years of frontline Soviet aviation. Every radar weakness, every blind spot, every place the machine was stronger on paper than in the air. Zuyev gives them everything. 2 years later, American and coalition pilots fly into combat against Iraqi MiG-29s in Operation Desert Storm. They go in knowing exactly where the machine is blind. A strawberry cake baked in a Soviet kitchen in Georgia helped shape the outcome of a war fought over the Iraqi desert. The men who used that intelligence never knew his name, but Alexander Zuyev was in the cockpit with every one of them. Turkey does not return the pilot. Zuyev settles in San Diego. He learns English, real English this time, not just the 4 words he memorized for the tarmac. He opens a consulting firm. He writes a book, Fulcrum, a Top Gun pilot's escape from the Soviet Empire. He builds a life from the ground up, which, it turns out, is something he is very good at. The man the Soviet system built was gone, and in his place, Zuyev had to build himself from scratch. At 30 years old, starting from the beginning. June 10th, 2001, near Bellingham, Washington. Alexander Zuyev climbs into a small Soviet-built Yak-52 trainer with a fellow aviator. The aircraft enters an accelerated stall. It does not recover. Both men are killed. Alexander Zuyev is 39 years old. The man who outflew the entire Soviet air defense network, who fought a guard hand-to-hand in the dark, who crossed the Black Sea alone and bleeding in the most advanced fighter on Earth, killed by a Soviet training aircraft. 12 years after that night over the Black Sea, the country that built the plane that killed him was the same country he flew away from. Back in the country he left, a woman had once woken to find him gone, her name attached to a choice she never knew was coming. The system that demanded her loyalty was the same one that punished her. And in San Diego, the man who left her behind had learned, at last, to call himself free. Whether those 2 things could both be true at once, only he could have answered. And a Soviet training aircraft made certain he never would. Finally, he was American. He meant every word. Zuyev crossed an ocean to become an American. In our last story, see what Americans risked to bring one of their pilots home from Iran. Clash of Empires tells the true stories history almost forgot. Subscribe, and we'll fly the next one together.